this lesson, we are going to look at multiplication of algebraic expressions. If I look at the first question that I have here, I must identify my coefficients, then I multiply them, and in this case I'm going to get 14, then I multiply the variables. When I move on to the next question, I do the same thing again. I identify my coefficients, multiply them out, and if I multiply, I'm going to get negative 15. Then I look at the variables. When the bases are the same, I add the exponents, and if I do that, I'm going to get x to the power of 6 and y is standing alone. Remember the laws of exponents. There is a law of exponents which says a to the power of m times a to the power of n. The answer is a to the power of m plus n. If the bases are the same, we add the exponents. Let me put this in a cloud. It's going to guide me as I do this activity with you. If we move on to the next question, I'm going to do the same thing again. Identify my coefficients and multiply them. I'm going to get negative 12. And then when I look at this part here, I have an invisible one. So I'm going to get a to the power of 3. Then when I go to the variable b, I'm going to add the exponents and I'm going to get 6. When I move on to the next question, I see that I have an algebraic term outside. So this term, I'm going to distribute it to the first term in the brackets and also to the second term in the brackets. And if I do that, I'm going to get 12xy in the first part, then 4 times 7, I'm going to get 28, and the variable is y. Number 5, I also have this term here, which is outside the brackets, so I must distribute to my terms here. Let's identify the terms here. And this arrow here is saying to us here, we have a negative sign outside the brackets. So this sign here is going to change. So let's see what we're going to get. We're going to get negative 12 x to the power of 4. Let's be very careful here. We add 2 plus 2, we get 4. And then the y is standing alone. Remember, we said this sign is going to change, so it's going to become a minus. And then if we multiply here, 6 times 9, we're going to get 54. Then we go to our variables. When we go to our variables, we will see that here we've got an invisible one. So this is going to give us x to the power of 3, y to the power of 3. Then I move on to the next one. I also see that I have a term here, which is outside. Let's distribute it to all the terms that we have. You can also identify these terms so that you don't get confused when you are doing this work. What are we going to get for the first one? I'm going to get negative 2m to the power of 2. I have an invisible one here, I have an invisible one here. That is where the 2 came from. and then the sign is going to change. So it's going to be 2 to the power of 2m to the power of 4. I add the exponents. The sign here is also going to change. M to the power of 5. Please be very careful when you are doing this work. Always check your exponents, and be very careful again when we have a variable which is written just like this as m, and then we should know that we have an invisible one here. Moving on to the last question, I realized that I need more space, so I put it here on another paper here. I'm noticing here that I have this term here which is multiplying the 3 terms which are inside the bracket. In order for me to multiply here, there are 2 things that I can do. I can take this term and put it in front, or I can do it from the back. So in this question here, I'm going to put it in front. And then inside the bracket I have 5h plus 2k minus 3d. And then after that, I am going to do the distribution. When I do it for the first term, I'm going to get negative 10h squared. Let's be very careful here. There's an invisible one here. So this is going to be h to the power of 3 instead. And please do not forget the k there. Then when I go to the second term, let's see the second term here, the sign is going to change. So it's going to be minus 4h to the power of 2. Let's analyze our case. There's an invisible one here, there's an invisible one here. So I'm going to get k to the power of 2. When I move on to the last one, I also see there's a minus and a minus, so it's going to be positive. And when I multiply, I'm going to get 6d h to the power of 2, then k. And now I have my final answer. And please, as you do this work here, remember to apply your laws of exponents. Let me recap here. A to the power of m times a to the power of n. When the bases are the same, we must add the exponents. So we get a to the power of m plus n. I can put this in a cloud, and please use this law to guide you every time when you are multiplying algebraic expression.